Never has it been like it is now. The Kenyan coast is feeling the real effects of climate change, and it's unbelievably a direct threat to livelihoods. Communities are now facing the real danger on the effects of climate change. Climate change patterns play a fundamental role in shaping our natural ecosystems, the human economies and cultures that depend on them. For the reason that so many systems are tied to the climate, a change in climate can affect many related aspects.
Climate change has more to do with our behavior. How we preserve or conserve our resources, especially forests, and how we utilize them.
Changing in the timing of rains or temperatures are now affecting when plants bloom and set fruit, when insects hatch, or when streams are at their fullest.
One of the major challenges that most of our ecosystems are facing right now is this element of climate change. The changing temperature, the changing rainfall patterns.
Hali ya anga ya mvua hivi sasa na zamani tukiangalia ni kweli yako mabadiliko. Manake zamani tukitegemea kupanda kwa mvua ya mwezi wa 3. Tukipandia tukipata pengine mwanzo wa mwezi au katikati ya mwezi, inaendelea mpaka tumpanda mwezi wa 4, inaendelea mpaka sasa tupanda mwezi wa 5 na mvua bado haijakuwa nzuri. Lazima mabadiliko yako.
Lakini kwa sasa maji yanapanda moja kwa moja, yanafika mpaka karibu na mashambani. Hivyo basi ile chumvi kila ikisongea mbele, ndio mmea ule ambao sisi tuwapanda hauwezi kuwa kwa ile chumvi.
Bahari ya dhuru mimea, manake maji ya chumvi hayakuzi kitu. Hayakuzi kabisa. Mimi nikifahamu ni mtoto, shambani kwetu ni hapa tulikuwa tukilima mpunga. Sasa ukilima mpunga ikiingia maji ya chumvi yafa.
That has caused the coastal people to shift their ways of life. So culturally, what they used to do many years ago, they no longer do that because the seasons have been disrupted.
Kama mimi shamba langu liko karibu na baharini, sasa maji yakija ingia shambani mwangu.
Communities are observing extensive coastal erosion taking place, not only of the beach, but also of the land. Now displacing some of them from their traditional house plots and felling coconut and papaya trees and other varieties of vegetation at the coastal areas.
Sababu kubwa ya kuliwa hii bahari hapa na kufanya maporomoko ni kwamba ililiwa hii mikoko hapa mbele yote ikaenda, ndio sababu imepata nguvu hiyo, maji ikija inabomoa na kupeleka mchanga huko.
The land is experiencing increased wave heights and frequency, placing increased pressure on the shoreline and seawalls.
If you look at this area, you can see that at one time this area was actually covered by mangroves. It's like we've just lost the cover, and probably that is why the water now is eating into the village. Yeah. So understanding that and then coming up with the appropriate mitigation measures. Possibly if you build a wall in this area, you will simply just transfer the force of the water to another area that will be negatively impacted. So this one actually now responding to some of these threats, especially on the shoreline, will actually in the long run even require a strategic impact assessment, not just a simple looking at small areas, because what you do with the circulation of the water, even if you look on the beach, it's a continuous process. So if you interfere with one area, you're actually interfering with other areas much along the beach. So you cannot say that you will have one solution here and then another one there. So you have to look at the system in totality.
Na hii yaonesha si yauka kubwa sana. Hii ni size, lakini kuna ile yauka kubwa la kufurika mpaka maji kuporomoka kwenda upande wa pili.
Tuko karibu na bahari. Shida tuko nayo hapa ni kubwa, ni ya maji. Tumejaribu kutafuta maji kupita kwa boreholes. Tunachimba maboreholes, lakini unakuta boreholes kwa sababu tuko karibu na bahari, maji yanatoka mazuri, baada ya muda kidogo yanageuka na kwa chumvi. Especially wakati kukiwa na kasikasi, jua kali, wakati wa jua kali ndio maji yanakuwa chumvi zaidi.
Shoreline change will result into the modification of the shore, which means where the seawater was not coming in, now it comes in. And it's related also to sand mining. Once so much sand has been mined, as it's here in Malindi area, it leaves gullies. So when these coastal regions are modified, seawater actually finds its way from the ocean into the excavated area and stay there for extended periods. When it stays there, it seeps down onto the baseline, onto the rock, into the aquifers of the water, and actually mixes with the water underground and disrupts the balance of water. That's why you find some places becoming saline. But the best example is when you excavate water from the sand dunes. When you excavate water from the sand dunes, you interfere with the aquifers, with the balance of the water that is normally within the sand dune. So the salt water, the water pressure from the sea comes and takes over from the fresh water that have been excavated from the sand dune and replaces it with the salt water in an event that you cannot reverse. So it's not a direct relation with the mangroves, but it's a semi-direct relationship with the modification of the shoreline, which can be caused by the climate change.
Freshwater ponds are now flooded with seawater, killing coconut trees, a vital part of the local diet. Mangroves are intensely affected by this phenomenon. Mangroves are the backbone of the tropical ocean coastlines and are far more important to the global ocean's biosphere than previously thought. The term mangrove does not refer to a specific taxonomic group of species, but to all tropical trees and shrub species growing in saline soils. Mangroves are in diverse groups of more than 50 species. Although unrelated, all are adapted to live in wet soils, saline habitats, and periodic tidal submergence. Another use of the term mangrove includes the entire plant community, including the individual mangrove species. Mangroves are an important part of estuarine food webs, producing large amounts of leaf litter. Leaves drop from the mangrove trees and are quickly decomposed by fungi and bacteria. This decomposed matter is a source of food for marine life, including economically important shrimp, crabs, and fish. Mangrove foliage, however, has declined by nearly half over the past decades because of increasing coastal development and damage to its habitat. A rapid decline in mangrove threatens the delicate balance and may eventually shut off the important link between the land and ocean, with potential consequences for atmospheric composition and climate.
Mangroves have highly productive ecosystems, but the productivity is also tied to some extent to the climate, such that even the production of seeds happens, it kind of coincides with the rainy season. But because of the delays of the rains, you find that even those patterns of production of seeds are actually shifting. And also survival of the seedlings when they are recruited also depends on the weather condition. So we are foreseeing a situation whereby even the recruitment of new individuals into the ecosystem will be affected as the climate changes, as it gets more hotter, the rainfall patterns get more haphazard, so that natural cycle will be impacted. Secondly, we are talking of sea level rise, though in our area here is not so pronounced, but we know that we are talking of 1 to 2 millimeter rise per year. So if you look at it in the long run, it's going to claim, the ocean is going to claim more land.
In the event that there are no mangroves at all, the sand that you are seeing will be eroded. The baseline rock that you see here will be exposed, and this sand will go and choke the corals. So after a short time, there will be no corals, and there will be no tourists coming to see the corals of Kenya.
We may have to come up with plans how to ensure now these forests remain intact, simply because of the services they offer and the opportunities they offer, and not just to human livelihoods, but also to biodiversity.
Mangroves protect shorelines from damaging storm winds, waves, and floods. Mangroves also prevent erosion by stabilizing sediments with their tangled root system. They maintain water quality and clarity, filtering pollutants and trapping sediments originating from land. Mangroves are a critical component of the coastline and serve as valuable nursery areas for fish and invertebrates. In addition, mangroves also support a number of threatened and endangered species. Leaves have been used in tea, medicine, as livestock feed, and as a substitute for tobacco smoking.
If we don't take great care and try to replant, the ones we have here will be depleted very, very soon.
A long-term management plan for the sustainable use of mangrove ecosystems is urgently needed. Our goal should aim at defending the mangrove swamp area, more so through exchanging knowledge and experiences and through lobbying and advocacy at the national policy level.
The mangroves as plants have a lot of products: food, medicinal, construction material. So if you disseminate all these mangroves, you are in essence starting the dissemination of the people of coast and the coastal cultures as well, because their cultural values are intertwined with the mangrove trees.
And it is estimated, apparently, probably, more than 50% of our mangroves are already gone. We may not know this, but it needs to be quantified.
We need researchers to come on the ground to educate the community. What are the proper mitigation measures that they're supposed to do at the creek to come up to adapt the climate change?
Globally, we are looking at the loss of mangrove globally is estimated to be 1 to 2% per year. So if you're talking of that 86% loss in Mombasa, it is probably one of the highest rate of mangrove cover loss in the world. That is Mombasa now. And you attribute it to so many reasons, one of them being urbanization, the demand for fuel wood, and also inappropriate management practices. So we have lost 86% already. Now the challenge is even the other mangroves, they need proper management systems to ensure that such a trend does not happen. And even Mombasa now, as we talk of 86% loss, we should be thinking now, how can we restore that system? How do we need to move in and restore it? Because the functions are quite immense, even affecting fisheries, the decline in fisheries, decline of also biodiversity, because now most of the species that used to use that ecosystem have been impacted, and we don't know this because we've never quantified this. So those are lost opportunities. We are looking at economic opportunities.
If we won't have proper mitigation measures for the mangrove forest and direct projects which will where the community will benefit from the resource we have, I think we're going to lose what we have for now.
There are certain species of trees now cannot be found. Like if you look at this forest now in Mida Creek, normally in Kenya we have 9 species of mangroves, but only 7 are found here. Possibly the other 2 were here, but now they've been wiped out. I'm not saying that they were, but probably. And if you look at others like Soneratia now, which is one of the species that is found here, is being infested by insects, and it may possibly be wiped out if you're not careful.
There is an insect that has come in the coastal region, affecting mangroves, destroying them and killing them. What happens, the larvae of the insect gets in the tree and it feeds on the wooden tissue, going round like ringing the wooden tissue. Now once it has done that, there is no nutrients going up to the leaves, and also there is no any water and other solutes going to the tree. Now these mangroves are very important, and they help the community in many ways and the ecosystem of the ocean in many ways. Without the mangroves, then we don't talk of a good coral reef, and we don't talk of a good seagrass, which are all nursery grounds for all animals in the sea.
So there's a big effort now by the Kenya government through a project such as the Kenya Coastal Development Program to provide seedlings to the coastal communities and encourage them to replant the mangroves so that the rate of replanting the mangroves supersedes the rate at which they are being depleted. This is an effort that is not only being conducted by various projects such as the KCDP, but also by indigenous coastal forest associations. They are forest associations that are managed by the communities themselves. So they get seedlings from the Kenya Forest Research Institute, and they already have the traditional knowledge of where to plant these seedlings, and they plant these seedlings and they nurture them just like any other trees in the forest.
So far we planted about 10,000 seedlings together with the community, and we normally do this every year. And apart from the mangrove seedlings we collect, we also visit the communities, and we give them Casuarina seedlings to plant in their shambas to stop them from sneaking in the mangrove forest and exploiting. Because there was need to support them to stop them from exploiting the mangroves.
Beautification of the shoreline has various effects. One good example is at Marereni. What is happening is that the constructions were done without taking due consideration of the movement of the ocean. Now, as a result of the seashore change and climate change, basically, some of those constructions that were made on the upper shores, they have actually submerged because the sea has swallowed them. The sea has come to claim what is its own. Apart from a hotel, a structure of the fisheries department which was constructed without due consideration of the environmental assessment. So these structures have been submerged, and when you see the sites, you just know that 20, 30 years ago, nobody would have guessed that the sea would have come to this height. Another one is the sea walls. When the government realized that some villages were at risk, they started creating sea walls. But they did not create these sea walls taking into consideration the regimes of the ocean. So after completing one phase of the sea wall, when they were proceeding in the next phase, the water started going all over the sea wall and actually submerging the village. And not only over the sea wall, it also started eating it from below. So that clearly shows how impact assessment should have been done very, very thoroughly in order to know what the direction of the water is, what the wind regime is, what the baseline information about that area is, so that when the seawalls are being created, they should be created at the right time and at the right location. Because now what is happening is that the seawalls are not doing their job. You have to do a study and determine which areas are in the path of the ocean so that these areas can be avoided. Instead of using them as construction sites, they should be used as conservation areas for turtles and vegetation and the likes.
Kwa maoni yangu, bahari ikiendelea hivi itabidi tugure. Maanake ikiwa maji leo yanaingia shamba yankuja mpaka yafika uwandani, utabaki wapi? Lazima uvunde nyumba ugure. Bahari yataka irudi nyuma, lakini ikisongea mbele itavunda mji. Itavunda miji ya watu, kana vile ambavyo tutasikia watu wa mitoni huko maji yanaingia, watu wanatukuliwa na maji, na msisi huku kwetu huenda ikatokea hivyo hivyo. Maanake maji hayakai mjini. Na sasa bahari yatufuata. Ikiwa itasongea hivyo, lazima itakuwa madhara kwetu.
We need to be responsible, to take that responsibility of ensuring that this vegetation cover that is also very important in mitigating the impacts of climate change by absorbing the carbon, the vegetation has to be maintained. So we have to take the initiative of planting more trees, ensuring we have more forest cover and vegetation cover, and how we utilize resources. Let us look for alternative sources of energy. I know it's a challenge because a big proportion of our population utilizes charcoal or firewood. And that is what is clearing this vegetation. So can we look for alternatives, even if we have to plant our own firewood? Like you plant your own trees, the fast growing trees, and harvest within a given time rather than going for the natural system. Our population has become high. I think the coastal zone has one of the highest population growth, not just in Kenya, but globally. So this is a challenge that the resources that are there can no longer be exploited the way they've been exploited traditionally, because the demand is quite high.